Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining in today. We'll be discussing the report we recently launched, the report on forging ahead strategic partnerships between GCCs and service providers. So just to clarify in the beginning itself, we have targeted the tech service providers in this report, and we have tried to understand how the evolution of the partnerships between the two parties has been. So to understand what I'll be talking about today and what the report has, we have actually viewed the GCCs and service providers as two parallel tracks since a long time. But today these tracks are actually converging, and as we actually begin, I wanted to showcase what all I'll be covering today. And the first area, like I was saying, it will be the evolution of the different Indian GCCs and the tech service providers. We will try and understand the sort of history that took them to come from simple cost centers to value creators. And secondly, we'll be analyzing the impact and the partnership models of these next gen GCCs. We will not just talk about outsourcing. We are actually talking about structural integration that is happening now. And thirdly, we'll be talking about the building blocks of success for both of these. What would be the specific DNA of sorts, the governance, and how the culture and tech are required to actually make these kinds of partnerships work. And lastly, we'll talk about some action plans for charting the path forward, whether you are a center who's starting from scratch, the greenfield GCCs, or transforming a legacy center like the brownfield GCCs do. We have a roadmap for you. So let's just dive in. Starting off, the evolution of partnerships have taken a lot of turns. To understand where GCCs are heading towards, we must first understand the journey that actually brought us here. So the relationship between the GCCs and service providers has not been static. Actually, it has evolved a lot through four distinct waves that we have been talking about in the journey of GCCs, and each was defined by actually a specific mindset and a market need actually. So starting off with the wave one, which was up till 2010, we can see that in this era GCCs were merely an outpost of sorts. The primary motivation was cost arbitrage, and the service providers were viewed as strictly substitutes to them. And the dynamic was actually defined by competition, and it was a zero-sum game that where both the entities fought for the same offshore scope. So the question asked by the parent organizations at that time was simply who would do it more cheaper, who would be more cost efficient. So that was the wave one. Moving on to the wave two, where the GCCs became more of a satellite of sorts up till the 2011 to 2015 timeframe. We actually entered a phase of sort of parallel play. Providers and GCCs started coexisting, and it was transactional sort of in nature now. They were bound by very rigid and sort of penalty focused SLAs, but they were very they were still operating in silos. The GCCs did the core work, whereas the provider did the sort of chore work, and there was very little cross pollination of ideas and work that happened at that wave. And when we moved to the wave 3, which was recently between 2015 till 2023, we saw a lot of maturity that came into GCCs. They became they entered the portfolio hub of sorts, and the relationship between the two parties now started softening. So what happened was the providers shifted to becoming enablers and supporting the actual GCC setups, and injecting sort of capacity where the GCCs needed it. So we saw a lot of rise of managed capacity models, and uh, even though that happened, the strategic control that was there, it was still guarded by GCCs in this wave 3. Now, coming to the recent wave 4, where GCC is actually transformed into, transformed into the hub of transformation and matured a lot more. They entered the age of innovation. The dynamic had fundamentally, transformed into a collaboration of sorts. So in this way, we saw providers not only being a competitor, but actually becoming an enabler. They were part of an integrated ecosystem, and they helped GCCs deliver fast capacity, specialized IPs, best in class productivity, and more of measures side by side with the GCCs. The equation between them, it was not just us versus them, has come down. It is more like us now. They are working together in co-innovating, co-developing products, and sort of more synergistic relationship, like we say, has come up. Now moving on, the question comes that what do the actual the parent organizations of these GCCs want? Well, the question also comes like, why is this evolution happening right now? Why did it not happen earlier? So it is actually driven by the main factor of the expectations that are arising from their global parent headquarter companies. The days when the GCCs were a passive back office are over now. So our report has actually identified that there were 3 non-negotiables that demands of sorts that were placed by the HQs on the GCC leaders, and the first one being of a strategic integration. So we see that GCC leaders now need a seat at the global decision making table, and they aren't just receiving orders, they are expected to actually anticipate the market shifts, and whether it's the rise of sustainable tech, or supply chain resilience, or even changing regulatory landscape. So these kind of parent organizations expect the GCCs to sense these changes and propose these solutions very proactively. Secondly, the expectation is to drive autonomous value. So parent organizations actually want the GCCs to stop being a cost center and start owning the P&Ls. So this is actually a massive shift. It means you need to own the innovation pipelines. You need to start developing the proprietary technology that actually generates the revenue. So they want the GCCs to function like actually an internal startup that pays off for itself by creating a lot of value. So yeah, that's the second sort of expectation. And the third one is around continuous innovation. We've been seeing that speed has become sort of a new currency. So whether it's like integrating Gen AI, or automating different kinds of code generations into your pipelines, the headquarter companies, organizations, they expect the GCCs to be sort of a testing ground, the sort of sandbox for the latest technologies that they can try, the tech stacks that they can implement before they are actually rolled out globally into their organizations and other offices. So yeah, these were the 3 expectations that we see coming in from the headquarters, that is actually making or creating the business case for these step ahead, take the partnership route, and create more value. So this is the need, but the challenge is not all GCCs can actually, meet these kind of massive expectations that are coming in. And, whether it is like scaling niche talent, like, if you're going for data scientists, AI engineers, or even, cloud architects, if you're doing it internally, it's going to be pretty slow and really expensive actually. So yeah, that brings us to the core concept of our report, the next gen GCCs. So the first question comes, what are next gen GCCs? So I would say the next gen GCCs are either those who are actually able to do it all by themselves, and there are many who are actually doing it. But there's another route, the route of partnerships. So we have, for this report, focused on the partnership aspect, the approach, how you can, partner with service providers and, create more value. So how you can actually partner with service providers and, operate as one team. The first could be, you can share a vision. You should have a shared vision. So basically both entities should align at the beginning itself on a single North Star. So by North Star, I mean they should have the success defined jointly in the beginning itself. And then, they should always complement each other's strengths. It could be, the GCCs is bringing the deep domain knowledge and the corporate DNA of sorts, and proximity to the business strategy as well. And the service providers would bring a lot of agility, their, ready-made platforms, their accelerators, and, diverse cross-industry experience that they have that GCCs might, actually lack. So when all of these things meet and, the best of both meet, the result is actually a move, which is just beyond the traditional, transactional staff augmentation to actually a more outcome-based co-ownership, where you actually share the sort of risk and also the rewards of the project. So moving on and trying to understand, if you want to partner, what are the different types of, models. So our report actually talks about four distinct engagement models that we wanted to highlight. There are many more, and increasingly people have been adopting a lot of hybrid models as well. So my suggestion is, please do understand your need first and then select the model. So the the four models that we have spoken about in the report are, the first one is the BOT model, which we are calling as BOX, that is, build, operate, transfer, or manage. This model is actually, optimized for speed. So a service provider will actually help you set up the center. It will help you hire the staff. It will help you, instill the different kinds of processes using their existing infrastructure. And once the center is steady, they would actually transfer the ownership to the enterprise, or in some cases, like we know, manage for a period of time. And here I would just give you a recent example of a global retailer which had used this model to set up their operations and, their analytics hub. In just 18 months, they were able to, achieve it, which was actually, cutting down their setup time that they had actually, imagined and, calculated before by 40%, when if they would have done it solo. So that's a great save of time. And the second model that we have covered here is of the joint ventures. So this is one of the most integrated models, I would say. These, in this, both the parties invest equally, and they also not just equally invest, but they are investing in the equity also. So this helps align the, risks and, different kinds of rewards perfectly. And it is often used for, different kinds of high stakes product development where, IP protection is very crucial, and, the enterprises are wanting the partner to have sort of more skin in the game. So yeah, that's also another model that you could go for. The third model that we have been, we have spoken about is the talent augmentation. This is not the standard, contracting, of talent. This is about how you can, embed sort of pods of experts. So, say you have a specialized cybersecurity squad who would sit in your GCC, and they would actually attend your GCC town halls or use GCC email IDs, and culturally sort of integrate within your whole team, but they're actually on the partner's payroll. So that sort of seamless integration is there in this model. And the last model that we have highlighted, which is the most important one when we have seen these kind of partnerships happening and there's more focus on this now, is the co-innovation model. So I would say this is sort of a lab approach of sorts. The provider and GCC would probably set up a dedicated innovation center to tackle different kinds of specific hard to solve problems that they would have. And it could be about building a new age AI driven lending platform, or probably a digital twin for the manufacturing segment. So yeah, co-innovating, developing, and it could be around products, IP, and all of that. So there's a lot of value that both the parties would gain from this model. Moving on. So now how they can both make it work, both the GCCs and service providers. We must acknowledge that partnerships are very hard when there are cultural clashes and misaligned incentives, and these are very common nowadays. So we analyzed that some of the most successful collaborations, and found that these are the four common drivers that actually act as a glue between them and help sort of keep the partnership intact. So the first one, like I already spoke about, is sharing a North Star. It actually sounds soft, but it is very critical. So if the provider is incentivized on sort of billable hours, meaning they want the project to take longer, or while the GCC is incentivized on doing more of automation kind of activities which would reduce their hours, the partnership would actually fail. So incentives across both the parties must align, and this should be done at the start itself. It should not focus towards the it should focus on the outcome, but not towards the effort. So that should be there, defined in the beginning itself. The second is around strong governance. So we need to have sort of 3 tiers of governance, wherein we are, for example, connecting on daily, weekly, or monthly basis. Probably you are doing some sort of operational scrums on a daily basis where the teams meet up and stand up together. Weekly basis, you could talk about project management reviews to track different sort of milestones that you initially set up between them. And then the monthly and quarterly basis, you could connect and understand with the senior leaders from both sides if there are any roadblocks, or the strategic alignment is there. So to ensure all of that, this 3-tier governance would be very helpful on a regular basis. The third driver of success is the magnetic talent. So we've seen that successful GCCs leverage their partners to hire. If the partner is known for probably great training programs for a tool, or for a sort of cool engineering culture, use that to attract your talent to the GCC. Don't compete for talent, actually pool your brands and use each other's presence and each other's brand to get a magnetic talent present in your GCC and your service provider as well. And the fourth is around joint tech, the co-innovation angle. So don't start building from scratch. Use your partners, existing accelerators, be it probably code libraries or testing frameworks or automation suites, to jumpstart your projects. And I mean, why build a payment gateway test suite when your partner already has one? Leverage it. So yeah, these are some of the drivers of success that we have highlighted. And so we also talk in detail about the different kinds of GCCs that we have. Going with the greenfield one. So the greenfield ones are those who are setting up new operations and how they should start their journey with partnerships. So our advice here is, don't just fall into the trap of saying like, let's stabilize first and then partner. We actually found out that the silos that are created in the beginning itself will be very tough to break later. So by that I mean, once you build a wall, it's very hard to break later on. So it's best start partnering from the get-go itself. And some of the suggestions that we have is set some bold mandates in the beginning. Define the mandate from the day one. Don't just ask for support, ask for transformation from your partner. Make the choices early. So decide on whether it's going to be build versus buy versus different kind of partner strategies before the kind of silos set in. And lastly, co-design. So bring in the partner during the blueprint phase itself, and let them actually help you design the floor plan, the HR policies, and the tech stack. And that will not just help you create that relationship from the beginning itself, but also give you that expertise leverage that the service providers have. An example here I would give is of an leading automotive player. So they had partnered with a tech firm recently before opening their India center, and this actually allowed them to launch with a fully operational R&D wing. So they were able to do so in just six months. So the initial average that we have seen of these wings to set up, R&D wings to set up, is around 18 months. So it's a huge learning curve that they were able to bypass. Going ahead and talking about the brownfield GCCs, these are some of the established GCCs that we have, and the path for them is a little harder, but it is necessary now. We've suggested that they should first start diagnosing and then resetting. So by that we mean they should first have a vision reset of sorts. So you would need a start-stop exercise when you're starting. So you likely would have a lot of vendors that you've used from approximately 10 years or more, just out of your habit, or that's how the things have been. So it's time that you stop the low value vendor relationships that are actually purely transactional. So by that I mean, the next step, like when you are a large enterprise that have more than say 50 plus vendors, this can never be manageable. So you need to be you need to consolidate into maximum 2 to 3 strategic partners who would actually deeply understand your core business. And lastly, you should incentivize move your contracts from time and material to more of managed services of sorts, or have create some gain share sort of models with the partner innovates and saves your money. It's also a win-win for you. So this drives actually the behavior change, and it helps the partnership grow. And it's not just that the GCCs need to, take a lot of steps. It's about the service providers who are also, pivoting a lot. The leading service providers are shedding a lot of order take mentality, and they are actually starting to invest a lot in a dedicated sort of vertical units. We have seen that happening in most of the service players, and we see that with this dedicated vertical units that they have created for GCCs, they are not just specializing, they are focusing on GCC collaborations and creating that distinct from the general IT services that is present in their organization. And these teams actually speak the language of GCCs. And the second thing that we have seen is they have also become more consultative in the nature in the front ends. So they are actually hiring senior consultants who can talk strategy with the GCC's leadership, and they aren't just sending delivery managers who would talk about code and tickets. They are actually sending strategists who talk about market share and ROI. So that is what we have been seeing in the market. The service providers are also pivoting a lot. And then just to wrap up, the isolated era of GCCs is ending, and we see that the complexity of modern technology, especially when it comes to AI, cloud has been here for a while, but also data sovereignty is actually too high to navigate alone. So our final mantra from our report is partner deep and move fast. So I think the future leaders will be those who stop treating these service providers as external vendors to be managed, or start treating them as an extension of their own intellectual muscle, but to actually create a sort of seamless boundary where you can't tell where the GCCs end and the partner begins. So that's all from me, but thank you so much for listening. Please do shoot up your questions in the chat. I will try to take up a few, and you can also share your feedback on NASSCOM, research@nasscom.in. The email address is research@nasscom.in. You can also download our free report. You can scan this code. It's available on NASSCOM website as well as our community website, NASSCOM community. You can create a free login also and download it.